She found a Lakota warrior with arrow in his back. Dawn came with war paint at her door. The morning air was crisp and still, carrying the faint scent of wet earth and pine. Sunlight had only just begun to spill over the hills, painting the landscape in soft gold. Maria walked along the edge of the woods near her small cabin, her boots crunching on the frost-covered ground. She often came here early, before the world woke, to gather her thoughts and enjoy the quiet. It was a place she felt safe in, a place that reminded her life could be simple if she let it. As she followed the narrow path along the river, her eyes caught something unusual among the trees. At first, she thought it was a fallen log, but as she stepped closer, her heart skipped a beat. A man lay on the ground, his body slumped awkwardly, and his clothes were torn and stained. An arrow protruded from his back. He was breathing, but barely. His face was pale and a trickle of blood ran down his side. Maria froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Fear and instinct battled inside her. She had heard stories about strangers wandering into the woods, sometimes hurt, sometimes dangerous, but she could not walk away. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Sir," she called softly, her voice shaking. "Bess, can you hear me?" The man's eyelids fluttered. His lips moved, forming words she could barely understand. He groaned in pain, his voice low and strained. "Please help." Maria's heart tightened. She looked around. There was no one else. Bay. No sign of immediate danger, just the forest, the river, and the cold morning. She knelt beside him, trying to keep herself calm. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'll help you. Just stay with me." Gently, she examined the arrow wound. She had some first aid knowledge, enough to stop bleeding and keep someone alive until they could get proper care. Carefully, she pressed her hands around the wound, trying to slow the flow of blood. The man winced, but did not resist. His eyes met hers briefly, dark brown and filled with pain. Yet there was something else, something strong, something proud. Who are you?" she asked, more out of need to understand than curiosity. He coughed, his voice weak. "Lakota, I am Lakota," he whispered. Maria had heard of the Lakota people before. They were one of the Native American tribes known for their strength, history, and traditions. Bear. She didn't know much, but she knew enough to respect him. "Don't try to move," she said firmly, pressing on the wound gently. "I'm going to get you somewhere safe." The man tried to nod, but a wave of pain made him groan again. Maria knew she could not leave him here. Carefully, she tried to lift him, supporting his weight as best she could. He was heavy, stronger than he looked, but she managed to carry him slowly toward her cabin, hidden among the trees a few 100 feet away. Her arms burned, her body shook, but she refused to give up. He needed her, and she would not fail. When she reached the cabin, she laid him gently on the bed. She tore some old cloth into strips to make bandages and cleaned the wound as best she could. Ray. The man closed his eyes, leaning into her care. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice faint. "You help me," Maria smiled softly. "You would do the same for me," she said, though she didn't mention the fear that had gripped her moments ago. She set about making a plan. She had a small phone, but the nearest hospital was far. She considered calling the authorities, but hesitated. She didn't know who had shot him or why, and she feared that calling for help could bring danger right to her door. Bad. As she worked, she noticed the details about him. The remnants of his clothing, the beads and patterns on his shirt, and the quiet dignity in his expression. Even in pain, he seemed proud, connected to something much larger than himself. Maria wondered what story had brought him here, into the cold forest and into her life. Hours passed slowly. She tended to him, speaking softly to keep him awake. "Despair. You need to hold on," she said gently. "You're safe now."
He tried to speak but could barely form words.
Still his eyes met hers, and she understood a silent promise. He would survive if she could help him. Outside, the sun climbed higher, illuminating the cabin with warm light. Maria looked at the man, noticing the strength hidden beneath his vulnerability. He was more than just a stranger in need. He carried history, culture, and pride in every movement, even in pain. She realized she could not just help his body. She needed to respect his story, to honor who he was while he healed. Night fell and Maria stayed awake, keeping watch. But she made a small fire in the stove, brewed warm tea, and whispered stories to keep him conscious. Sometimes he whispered fragments of words, names and places she didn't understand. Brave. She nodded, listening carefully, hoping to offer comfort even when she couldn't comprehend fully. Through the night she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She had never imagined herself in a situation like this. A stranger, wounded, lying in her home, depending entirely on her. Fear mixed with a strange excitement. A sense that this moment, though terrifying, was meaningful. She was part of something bigger than herself now. By morning, he stirred more strongly. Maria's heart lifted.
He opened his eyes and looked around, recognition and relief flickering in his gaze. "You..."
"Help me," he said again. "Why?" Maria hesitated, then smiled gently. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said simply. He tried to nod, wincing from the pain. She realized she needed to plan for the future. He could not stay hidden forever, and she could not care for him indefinitely. But for now, she would focus on keeping him alive, giving him strength to face what came next. Outside, the forest seemed peaceful, unaware of the drama unfolding in the small cabin. Maria thought about the man she had found, a Lakota warrior in modern times, hurt and alone, and somehow entrusted to her care. She felt a deep respect for him growing in her heart, a connection that was strange and sudden but undeniable. The morning sun shone brighter, and Maria made a silent promise. She would protect him until he could stand on his own. No matter what came, she would not abandon him. And in the quiet among the shadows and sunlight, she realized something else. This encounter would change her forever. The morning sun filled the cabin with a warm, soft light, and Maria moved quietly around the room. The man, still pale and weak from his injury, lay on the bed, breathing slowly but steadily. She had managed to clean the wound and bandage it as best she could, but she knew it would take time for him to recover fully. Her mind raced with questions, but she tried to focus on the most important thing, keeping him alive. She brought over a cup of warm tea and gently set it on the small table beside him. "Here," she said softly. "You need to drink something. It will help you feel better." He tried to sit up, but a sharp pain ran through his back. He winced and let out a low groan. Maria quickly moved to support him. "Easy," she said. "Don't rush." "But you need to rest." The man's eyes met hers, dark and filled with quiet gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Maria nodded, unsure if he could hear her clearly, but she smiled anyway.
"You're welcome," she replied.
"Just focus on getting better. That's all that matters right now." For the rest of the morning, Maria stayed by his side, checking his bandages, making him small meals, and keeping him awake enough to drink and eat. The silence of the cabin was comforting, but it was also heavy with unspoken questions. Who had attacked him? Why was he here, in this forest, injured and alone? And most importantly, what could she do to help him beyond this small cabin? As the man rested, he began to speak in short, slow sentences, each word carefully chosen. "I was traveling," he said, "to remember my people, my land." Maria listened closely, her curiosity growing with each word. She had never met someone like him before, someone who carried history and culture in every movement and every look. "Your people?" she asked softly. "You mean the Lakota?" He nodded weakly, a faint smile crossing his face despite the pain. "Yes, Lakota, my ancestors." Vast, strong, proud. Warriors. His voice trailed off as he struggled to rest without falling asleep completely. Maria felt a deep respect for him growing in her heart. She realized that he was not just a stranger in need of help. He was someone carrying the weight of generations on his shoulders. As the hours passed, Maria began to notice small details about him that made her even more aware of his heritage. His clothes, though torn and stained, still carried patterns and beads that spoke of tradition and history. His hands, though injured and trembling, were strong and calloused, the hands of someone who had worked hard, who had survived challenges and hardships. And even in pain, there was a dignity in the way he held himself, a quiet strength that inspired her. By mid-afternoon, he was able to sit up with her support, and they began to talk more. He told her about his journey, though in broken sentences and with frequent pauses. He was trying to reconnect with the land of his ancestors, to honor the traditions of the Lakota people, and to learn about the history that had been passed down to him. Maria listened, fascinated by his stories and the sense of purpose that shone through even in his weakened state. "You must be brave," he said at one point, looking directly into her eyes. "To help me, you
are brave." Maria smiled softly, feeling a warmth in her chest.
"I just did what anyone would do," she replied. "I couldn't just leave you there." He nodded slowly, a hint of a smile crossing his face. "Yes, but most would not stop. Most." Maria felt a shiver run through her. She had faced her own fear that morning, the fear of the unknown, of danger, of someone she didn't know. And yet she had acted. It was a small thing, perhaps, but to him it mattered. As evening approached, the light in the cabin grew softer, casting long shadows across the walls. Maria prepared a simple dinner and helped him eat, watching carefully to make sure he did not strain his wound. They spoke in small, careful sentences, sharing stories of their lives, hers of the quiet forest and her daily routines, his of the journeys he had taken, and the lessons his ancestors had taught him. Despite the language barrier and the pain, they were building a connection, a bridge of understanding and respect.
Later, as he rested again, Maria took a moment to step outside.
The sky was painted with soft hues of pink and orange, and the forest seemed calm and peaceful. but she could not shake the feeling that danger was still near, that the men who had attacked him could come looking again. She shivered, but she also felt a sense of determination. She had brought him here, kept him alive this long, and she would not let fear stop her now. When she returned to the cabin, she found him awake, sitting up and looking around with a mix of caution and curiosity. "You trust me?" he asked quietly. Maria sat beside him, taking his hand gently. "I do," she said. "And I know you trust me too. That's why we are here together, safe for now." He nodded slowly, a look of relief crossing his face. "Yes, safe, because you help." Maria felt a lump in her throat. She had never been thanked like this before, never felt such a strong connection with another person in such a short time. It was strange, and yet comforting. As night fell, Maria built a small fire in the stove, and made sure he was comfortable. Pish. She sat nearby, keeping watch, listening to the sounds of the forest outside. Every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call made her heart beat faster. She knew that their safety was temporary, that challenges lay ahead. But for now she focused on the small victories, the steady breath of the man beside her, the warmth of the cabin, the sense that they were not alone. Through the night they spoke quietly, sharing fragments of their lives, their hopes, and their fears. He told her of the traditions of his people, of the ceremonies and dances that honored the spirits and ancestors, and of the strength that came from knowing one's place in the world. Maria listened, fascinated and respectful. But she realized that she was learning something profound, not just about him, but about courage, dignity, and the quiet power of human resilience. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the window, the man was able to sit more steadily, and Maria could see the beginnings of strength returning to his body. She felt a surge of relief and pride. They had made it through the first night together, and she knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test both of them in ways they could not yet imagine. He looked at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Thank you," he whispered again, his voice stronger than before. "For staying, for caring," Maria nodded, smiling softly. "I will stay," she said. "We will get through this together." In that quiet moment, surrounded by the soft light of dawn and the gentle sounds of the forest, Maria understood something important. Helping him was more than an act of kindness. It was a choice to connect, to care, to act courageously even when fear threatened to stop her. And in that choice, she found a sense of purpose and strength she had never known before. The man closed his eyes for a brief rest, and Maria watched over him, her heart steady, her mind alert. She knew that the days ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges, decisions, and perhaps danger, but she also knew that they had formed a bond, one of trust, respect, and quiet determination that would carry them through whatever came next. And as the morning grew brighter, the world outside the cabin seemed full of possibility, a reminder that even in the face of pain and uncertainty, hope could be found. Maria's life had changed forever, and though she did not yet know the full story of the man she had saved, she understood that she had taken the first step into a journey that would test her courage, her heart, and her understanding of the world. For now, she stayed by his side, tending to him with care, listening to his quiet words, and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. Together, they faced the uncertainty of the future, strengthened by the simple truth that even in the darkest moments, compassion and courage could light the way. The morning air was cool and quiet, and Maria sat beside the man on the bed, watching him as he stirred. But he was gaining strength slowly, but the lines of pain still marked his face. Despite this, there was a calm dignity in the way he moved, even when sitting up or shifting slightly. Maria noticed it again and felt a deep respect for him. There was something in him that spoke of a long history, a story older than the forest outside her cabin. I need to tell you, he said, his voice low but steady. Maria leaned closer, listening carefully. She knew he had been hurt and weak, but now that he could speak more, she wanted to hear his story. Tell me, she said softly. I want to know. He took a slow breath, as if gathering courage. My people, Lakota, lived here for many years before others came. We cared for land, animals, spirits. His words were careful, as if each one had weight and meaning.
Bay. Maria listened with fascination. She had read about Native American tribes, but hearing it from someone who lived their history, who carried it in his heart, felt entirely different.
He continued, we have traditions, prayers,
Grasp, honor, ancestors, teach, rest, young, strength, respect. He paused, wincing slightly as the memory of his pain flashed through him. Phew. Maria gently touched his hand. It's okay, she said softly. Take your time. For the next hours, he shared what he could remember, what he had learned from his family and elders. Stories of bravery, of surviving harsh winters, of struggles to protect their lands. He spoke of the sacred connection between the Lakota and the land, the rivers, the forests, and the animals. Maria was captivated. Every word painted a picture of a life full of respect, courage, and balance with nature. Why, were you hurt? She asked carefully after a while. She didn't want to push him, but some part of her needed to understand the danger that had brought him here. He looked down at his hands, silence filling the room for a moment. Then he said, some people want land, despair, want, control, hurt. Anyone, stop. Truth, my journey. His voice was steady but carried a weight that Maria felt deep in her chest. She understood then that his journey was not only personal, it was dangerous. There were people who did not respect his mission, who would use violence to achieve their goals. Maria felt a shiver run through her. She realized she had not just found a wounded man in the forest. She had become part of a story that was bigger than herself, filled with history, conflict, and courage.
Yet, despite the fear rising in her, she also felt determination.
She could not let him face this danger alone. Over the next days, their bond grew stronger. Maria continued to care for him carefully, helping him eat, drink, and move gently. She learned to anticipate his needs, noticing when he wavered in strength and when he needed rest. In return, he shared stories and teachings from his culture, how to listen to the forest, how to respect the animals, how to remain calm and strong even in moments of fear. One afternoon, as Maria helped him move to the window to catch the sunlight, he pointed toward the forest. See, bland, sacred, respect, always. His words were simple, but their meaning was clear. He carried a deep connection to the land, one that Maria had never fully understood before. She felt a quiet awe in his presence, a sense that she was learning not just about him, but about a way of seeing the world that was older, wiser, and full of respect. As he rested, Maria thought about the people he had mentioned, those who had tried to stop him. Desk.
Who were they? Why did they feel threatened by a man seeking knowledge and connection to his heritage?
Barras. She worried about the future, about the safety of both of them, but she also knew that he was strong in ways she could not yet fully measure. He had survived an attack, walked through the forest, and trusted her care. That strength was something she could rely on. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees, he spoke again, his voice quiet but firm. I must test, continue, journey, find, place, Bectisas, ancestors, teach, future. Maria nodded, understanding his need. She knew she could not stop him from following his path, no matter how dangerous it might be. Yet she also realized that her role was crucial, for now she was his guardian, his support, his friend. In the following days, they prepared for the journey ahead. Maria helped him dress in stronger clothing and gathered supplies, water, food, and first aid materials. She noticed small scars and marks on his hands and arms, reminders of the life he had led and the dangers he had faced. She also noticed his patience, his careful movements, and the quiet intelligence in his eyes. He was a man who had lived much and learned even more. One evening, while Maria tended to the small fire in the cabin, he spoke quietly. "I afraid some follow harm." Maria understood the fear in his voice. The attackers were not far behind, and the forest could be both refuge and trap. She felt a surge of protectiveness. Becked.
"We will be careful," she said. "We will watch the forest, and we will stay safe."
"I will not let anything happen to you." He looked at her, eyes filled with gratitude and something more, trust.
You help?
Be more than medicine, care, heart. Maria felt warmth in her chest. She realized that her role was more than tending to his body. She was also helping him heal emotionally, giving him strength to face not only his injury, but the dangers and challenges ahead. As night fell deeper, Maria and the man sat together quietly. He shared more memories, small lessons from his elders about courage, patience, and respect. Maria listened, absorbing every word, feeling that the world was larger and richer than she had imagined. Beth. And she knew that this knowledge, these stories were precious, not just for him, but for her as well. The tension in the cabin grew as shadows moved outside. Every sound, the snapping of a twig, the rustling of leaves, made Maria tense. She knew danger could come at any time. Yet she also knew that they had prepared as best they could. She had made plans, hidden supplies, and strengthened the small cabin. Together they were ready to face whatever might come. He rested, finally allowing himself to sleep deeply for the first time since she had found him. Maria stayed awake, keeping watch, her mind alert, her heart steady. She thought of his words, his courage, and the stories of his people. She realized that she had learned more in these few days than she had in years of reading books or walking alone in the forest.
She had learned the value of trust, courage, and quiet strength.
When the first light of dawn broke through the cabin windows, Maria felt a sense of hope. The man was awake, stronger and more alert. They would continue his journey soon, and she knew that danger was still near, but she also knew that they could face it together. She had learned to trust him, and he had learned to trust her. That bond was stronger than fear, stronger than uncertainty. She looked at him, his eyes meeting hers with silent understanding. "We will go, soon," he said, his voice steady. Maria nodded, feeling determination rise inside her. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it side by side, strengthened by their trust and respect for one another. And in the quiet of that morning, with sunlight spilling over the cabin and forest, Maria realized something profound. Life could change in a single moment, a single choice. She had chosen to help him, and that choice had brought danger, challenge, and fear. But it had also brought connection, learning, and courage. Together, they would face the next chapter of this journey, carrying the lessons of the past, the strength of the present, and the hope for the future. And though the forest outside was still filled with shadows, she knew that they were not alone, and that sometimes trust, courage, and compassion were the strongest weapons of all. The forest was quiet in the early morning, but Maria could feel the tension in the air. She moved carefully beside the man, supporting him as he walked, his steps slow but steady. The previous days of care had made him stronger, but the arrow wound in his back was still a reminder of how close he had come to death.
Maria kept her eyes on the shadows, noticing every movement, every rustle in the trees.
She knew danger was still near, and they could not afford to be careless. "We must be careful," he said, his voice low. "They follow, maybe see us soon." Maria nodded, her heart pounding. "I know," she replied quietly. "We will watch each other, and we will stay safe. We can do this together." He looked at her, a faint smile breaking through his pain. "Yes, together," he agreed. They moved slowly through the forest, using the trees and undergrowth as cover. Maria carried a small pack with supplies, while the man leaned on a sturdy branch when he needed support. Despite the fear that lingered in the air, there was a quiet determination between them. Neither spoke much, but their movements were coordinated, a silent communication built on trust and understanding. Hours passed. The forest seemed calm, but every crack of a twig, every distant sound, made Maria's heart jump. She noticed the man pausing frequently, listening carefully, his head turning toward every subtle sound. His training, his instincts, were remarkable. But, even weakened by his injury, he could sense things she could not. She realized that he was not only a survivor but a warrior in every sense of the word. Suddenly, a shadow moved quickly through the trees ahead. Maria froze, and he hissed, "Quiet! Stay behind." They crouched low, hidden by thick bushes, holding their breath. The shadow paused, and they could hear muffled voices, harsh and unfamiliar.
Maria's stomach tightened.
These were the people he had warned her about, the ones who wanted to stop him. She could feel their presence closing in like a dark cloud over the forest. "We must move," he whispered. "Now, quietly." Maria nodded, following his lead. They slipped through the trees with careful, deliberate steps, staying low and using the natural cover of the forest. Every movement had to be slow and precise. Maria felt fear rising, but she also felt a strange surge of courage. She was not alone, and she trusted him completely. As they moved deeper into the forest, they reached a small clearing. He stopped and pointed toward a narrow path between the trees. "This way, safer, less free." "Seen," Maria nodded, and they continued, stepping carefully over roots and rocks. Every step was measured, every sound intentional. The forest, once peaceful and familiar, had become a place of tension and alertness. Suddenly a shout rang out behind them. Maria froze, her heart racing. The man grabbed her arm gently. "Hide now!" They ducked behind a fallen tree, pressing themselves to the ground. Through the gaps in the branches, they could see two men moving quickly, searching, looking for them. Bay. Maria's hands shook, but he held her steady. Breathe. Calm. But wait, he whispered. The men paused, scanning the forest. Maria could see the frustration on their faces. They were close, too close. But the warrior beside her was calm, his eyes focused, his mind calculating. Bye. Slowly he leaned forward and whispered, "Now, run. Follow me." Without hesitation, Maria followed his lead. They moved quickly but quietly, using every trick of the forest to stay hidden. Rocks, shadows, and fallen logs became their allies as they put distance between themselves and the men. After what felt like hours, they reached a small stream. The water was cold and clear, running swiftly over smooth stones. Phew! He stopped and knelt beside it, cupping water in his hands.
Drink. Safe. Few minutes. Maria knelt beside him, taking small sips.
Her body ached from fear and tension, but she felt a sense of relief wash over her. They had escaped for now. While resting, he spoke quietly, explaining, "They won't stop. My journey, fear, truth, must survive." Maria listened, feeling the weight of his words. She realized that this was more than just a personal attack. It was a struggle over something important, something he had promised to protect. Her respect for him grew even more. She understood that their survival depended not only on careful movement but also on courage, trust, and intelligence. As the day progressed, they continued through the forest, moving slowly and carefully. The man showed Maria small techniques to remain unnoticed: how to step lightly, how to blend with the shadows, how to use the sounds of the forest to cover their movements. Maria learned quickly, amazed by his knowledge and patience. She realized that survival was not just about strength, but about awareness, strategy, and timing. By evening, they found a small clearing near a cluster of rocks, perfect for a temporary rest. They built a small fire, careful to keep it low and hidden. The light flickered softly, casting long shadows across their faces. Maria prepared a simple meal while he cleaned the minor scrapes and cuts they had received from moving through the forest. The danger had not disappeared, but for now, they were safe. As they ate quietly, he shared more stories about his people, lessons of courage, patience, and respect for nature. Maria listened, absorbing every word. She realized that these stories were not just about the past. They were instructions for the present, lessons that helped them survive in the forest and understand the strength within themselves. Night fell and the forest became alive with sounds: the rustle of leaves, distant calls of animals, and the occasional crack of a branch. Maria kept watch while he rested. Buzz. She could see the tension in his face, the focus in his eyes, and she knew he was alert even while pretending to rest. She felt a deep admiration for him. His strength was not just physical. It was mental, emotional, and spiritual. At one point, a branch snapped nearby, and Maria froze. The man immediately grabbed her hand and whispered, "Hide, quickly." They moved behind a large rock, pressing themselves against its cool surface. Through the darkness, they could see the shadow of a figure moving toward them. Maria held her breath, trying to remain still. The figure stopped briefly, looked around, then moved away. Maria exhaled slowly, her heart pounding. The warrior beside her smiled faintly. Patience, calm, survive. The night continued with careful movements and silent vigilance. Maria realized that the forest, which had once been a place of peace and comfort, was now a test of endurance, courage, and teamwork. Every step, every sound, every decision mattered. She trusted him completely, and he trusted her. Together they had formed a bond that went beyond words, a bond built on survival, respect, and quiet understanding. When the first light of dawn appeared, they were still in the forest, but further from the danger. Maria looked at him, noticing the determination in his eyes. Despite the injury and the danger, he remained calm, focused, and strong. She felt a surge of admiration and trust. We made it, she whispered softly.
Yes!
Because we work. Bay, together, he replied. Maria nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. They had faced danger, used their intelligence, and relied on each other to get through the night. She realized that this was not just about escaping attackers. It was about trust, courage, and the human spirit.
After a brief rest, they began moving again, carefully navigating the forest.
Maria noticed how every step seemed more confident now, how they moved as a team rather than two individuals. The bond between them had grown stronger with every challenge, every danger, every quiet moment of shared courage. By mid-morning, they reached a small ridge that overlooked a wider part of the forest. The man paused, looking out over the land. Breath. Safe. See. Help. Soon, he said quietly. Maria felt hope rising in her chest. They had made it through the night, survived the danger, and learned to rely on each other. The future was uncertain, but for now, they were alive, together, and stronger than before. As they rested, Maria realized that the journey had changed her. She had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, yet she had discovered courage, patience, and resilience within herself. And she had learned to trust another person completely, to work as a team in the face of real danger. The forest had tested them, but it had also taught them lessons that would stay with them forever. The man looked at her, a faint smile on his face despite the exhaustion. Thank you for courage, trust, heart. Maria smiled back, feeling warmth and pride. We survive together, she said. He nodded, their bond stronger than ever. And as they moved carefully toward the next part of their journey, the forest around them seemed less threatening, less unknown. The danger was still there, but so was hope, trust, and strength. Together they had survived the night, faced the shadows, and discovered that courage and compassion could light the way, even in the darkest forest. The morning light spilled gently across the forest, warming the damp earth and revealing the soft greens and browns of trees and grass. Maria and the Lakota man stood together at the edge of a small clearing, breathing deeply after the long and dangerous journey. The tension of the previous days had eased slightly, replaced by relief and quiet accomplishment. He looked stronger now, his movement steadier, and the arrow wound that had caused so much pain was beginning to heal. Maria felt a mixture of pride and gratitude. They had survived, and they had done it together. For a long moment, they simply stood in silence, watching the sunlight filter through the trees. The forest that had once been a place of fear and danger now felt almost peaceful, a witness to their courage and determination. The man turned to Maria, his dark eyes calm and steady. "We safe for now," he said. "Thanks to you."
Maria smiled softly, feeling warmth in her chest.
We did it together, she said. I couldn't have done it without you either.
He nodded, his expression serious but kind.
There was a sense of mutual respect between them that went deeper than words, a quiet understanding born from shared struggle and trust. They began moving toward the path that would take them out of the forest and closer to safety. The man walked with more confidence now, and Maria noticed a subtle change in his demeanor. He was no longer weak or hesitant. Instead, he moved with purpose and focus, carrying himself with the quiet dignity that had always been part of him. She felt a deep admiration for him, not just for his survival skills, but for his strength of character and the wisdom he carried with him. As they walked, he began to speak again, sharing more stories about his people, their traditions, and the lessons he had learned from his ancestors. Maria listened intently, fascinated by the depth of knowledge and the connection to the land that he carried with him.
Your people have a remarkable history, she said softly. I feel honored to hear about it.
He looked at her, a faint smile crossing his face. Yes, history. Strong. But teaches courage, respect, life. Maria nodded, understanding that these lessons were not just about the past, but about how to live in the present, how to face challenges with strength and patience. She realized that the forest, the danger, and the journey had been a kind of teacher as well, showing them both the value of trust, courage, and perseverance. As the day went on, they finally reached the edge of the forest where the trees opened up to a small valley with a stream and a few scattered cabins. It was a quiet, peaceful place, far from the danger that had pursued them. The man paused, looking around with relief and gratitude. "Safe at last," he said quietly. Maria felt her own shoulders relax, the tension of the past days finally lifting. They found a small cabin nearby that was unoccupied. It offered shelter, warmth, and a chance for the man to rest fully. Maria helped him inside and prepared a simple meal, watching him eat with careful attention to his needs.
The wound on his back still required care, but he was strong enough now to move more freely and even help with small tasks. It was a moment of normalcy after days filled with fear and survival.
Over the next few days, Maria stayed with him, helping him recover fully. They worked together to make the cabin comfortable, cleaning, organizing, and gathering food. She learned more about his culture, listening to stories of ceremonies, dances, and the connection between the Lakota people and the land. In turn, he observed her skills and knowledge of the forest, learning to trust her instincts and guidance. But their bond deepened, built on shared respect, cooperation, and gratitude. One evening, as the sun set in soft orange and pink hues, he spoke quietly. "Maria, I thank you more than words can say. You saved my life, heart." Maria felt her chest tighten with emotion. She reached out and gently held his hand. "You've also taught me," she said softly. "Courage, patience, hope, and trust. I will never forget this." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We, bias, strong, together, yes, friendship, respect, always." Maria smiled, realizing that their bond was more than temporary. It was a connection forged through hardship, survival, and shared humanity. But they had faced fear and danger together and emerged stronger, wiser, and deeply connected. As the days passed, the man regained full strength. He spent time exploring the valley, reconnecting with the land, and reflecting on the lessons of his ancestors. Maria watched him with quiet admiration, noticing how carefully he moved, how respectfully he treated the trees, the water, and the animals. He was a man transformed by both his past and the journey they had shared. The time came for them to part ways. The man would continue his journey, returning to his community to share the knowledge he had gained, to honor his heritage, and to protect the traditions of his people. Maria understood this and felt a mixture of pride, sadness, and hope. They had shared something rare and profound, and though their paths would separate, the bond they had formed would remain. On their last morning together, they stood at the edge of the valley, looking out over the forest and the distant hills. The man turned to Maria, his eyes filled with quiet gratitude and respect.
Maria, remember.
Courage, kindness, heart, life, bay. Strong. He paused, then added, You, my friend, always. Maria felt tears welling in her eyes.
And you, mine, she whispered. They embraced briefly, a gesture of friendship, respect, and shared experience.
Rest. Then slowly he began walking toward the path that would take him back to his community. Maria watched him go. Feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and peace, she knew that he would carry the lessons, courage, and hope they had shared into the future, just as she would carry the memory of their journey and the bond they had formed. After he disappeared into the trees, Maria returned to the cabin and looked around. The forest felt alive with possibility and promise. She thought about the journey they had shared, the fear, the danger, the care, the lessons, and the trust. She realized that her life had been changed forever by this encounter, and she felt grateful for the courage and kindness that had brought them together. In the days that followed, Maria continued her life near the forest, but everything felt different. She moved with a quiet confidence, a deeper awareness of the strength within herself, and a new understanding of trust and compassion. The forest, once just a place of solitude, now felt like a space of learning, courage, and connection. Sometimes, at dawn, she would stand by the edge of the trees and imagine the man walking through the forest, moving with quiet strength and dignity, carrying the lessons of his ancestors and their shared journey. She would smile, feeling a sense of peace, knowing that courage and kindness could change lives, create bonds, and light the way even in the darkest moments. And though their paths had separated, the memory of that journey, the trust they had shared, and the strength they had found in each other would remain forever. Maria knew that the world was vast and unpredictable, but she also knew that even in the face of danger and uncertainty, courage, compassion, and human connection were powerful forces. Forces that could heal, inspire. She closed the cabin door and looked out at the sunrise. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink, the trees swaying gently in the morning breeze. Maria took a deep breath, feeling a quiet smile spread across her face. The world was wide and life was uncertain, but she was ready. She carried with her the lessons of courage, trust, and compassion, knowing that no matter what came next, she could face it with strength and hope.
In that peaceful moment, Maria felt a deep sense of completion. She had helped a stranger, shared in his journey, faced fear and danger, and come through stronger and wiser.
And in return, she had learned about courage, dignity, and the enduring power of trust and kindness. The forest, the journey, and the man she had saved would remain with her always, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope, bravery, and connection could light the way.
And as she turned to begin her day, Maria knew that life was not only about survival, but about the courage to act, the kindness to care, and the wisdom to learn from every moment. She smiled again, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, carrying the memory of the warrior, his stories, and the journey that had changed them both forever.